Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
Taxi! Okay, man, we're looking around. This is the 77 WABC minicast.
You are now entering the Stone Zone. Well, last night at about 8:30 Eastern Time, I got a call from Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, to tell me that she'd made a very difficult decision and that she would be stepping down as the Director of National Intelligence in order to support her husband, Abraham, after he was diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. Evidently, her husband will require a very difficult and painful surgery and no doubt a very prolonged recovery. Reports by Reuters that Gabbard resigned over policy differences with President Trump are patently false, just further proof that Reuters is not a journalistic outfit or a news outlet. They're just a propaganda front. I was personally assured by Gabbard, with whom I have a close friendship, that if she had objected to the president's actions in Iran, she would have resigned long ago, and that this had nothing to do with policy. See, I met Tulsi Gabbard when she was an independent. She served 4 terms in the House as a Democrat, but she had left the Democrat Party over its pro-war stance. And she was, at that point, thinking of running for vice president on the independent ticket of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. She and Kennedy would both ultimately decide to forego any independent candidacy and to support Donald Trump. I think she was an extraordinarily effective surrogate for Trump on the stump. And, of course, I also played some role in eventually convincing her to become a Republican. I've said it right here in the Stone Zone and multiple other places. She is one of the most impressive political figures I have ever met in my life. She served 4 terms in the House as a Democrat. She's a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. She's a decorated combat veteran. But beyond that, she is one of the most sure-footed, articulate, cautious, but I think well-spoken people I've ever met in American politics. And yes, I predicted that she will someday be president of the United States, and I stick to that prediction. She's expected to leave the position completely as of June 30th. In her resignation letter, Gabbard said she was deeply grateful for the trust President Trump placed in her and for the honor of leading the office of the Director of National Intelligence for the past year and a half. Let's go through some of her accomplishments, if we may. First of all, she declassified the Russian collusion hoax documents, something that the current CIA director could have done during President Trump's first term, but didn't. She also declassified all of the phony impeachment documents. This is earth-shattering because it allowed her to refer the Russiagate criminals, such as Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Susan Rice, John Brennan, James Comey, and the rest of their criminal retinue to the Department of Justice for prosecution. There is not a news outlet in America today who has a leg to stand on when they say that there was Russian interference in the 2016 election. And she exposed the 2 completely phony impeachments. You remember those, the 2 cute little Vindman twins in their little uniforms, and Eric Ciamella, the so-called whistleblower who was fabricating all of his claims, being coached by Congressman, now Senator, Adam Pencilneck Schiff. She declassified those documents as well. And she referred those same criminals to the Department of Justice for prosecution. She also spearheaded the investigation into voter fraud in Georgia. She actually led the raid on the Fulton County Election Board warehouse, where the famous 300,000 paper ballots that popped up from nowhere in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. Were seized. She investigated the dark origins of COVID-19. She, along with Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, another real fighter, fought to declassify and find many of the hidden documents pertaining to the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King, and more recently has fought with the Central Intelligence Agency over the files pertaining to MK Ultra, the controversial mind control program that was run by the CIA. She also revoked the security clearance from 37 Obama-Biden holdovers who still were within the intelligence apparatus, continuing to leak. Many of them signers of the famous letter by the 51 intelligence officers who claimed that Hunter Biden's laptop was not authentic, that it was Russian disinformation. She also fired officials who contradicted Trump on the Venezuelan gangs. She moved the CIA's In-Q-Tel program under DNI oversight for greater accountability. She uncovered Ukrainian government's plot to illegally reroute hundreds of millions of our U.S. tax dollars to Joe Biden's 2024 campaign. She launched the declassification effort to expose the truth about UFOs. At the same time, she slashed the bloated intel agency bureaucracy by 50% staff cut at ODNI, saving American taxpayers about $700 million. So she fully exposed the intelligence community's political weaponization. And she did all of this, as we now know, with the CIA breathing down her neck and trying to tie her hands at every turn. Shocking story by the respected journalist Catherine Herridge yesterday that indicates that the working group that Tulsi Gabbard headed that was studying the 2020 elections, not only the paper ballots, but also the security and manipulability of electronic voting machines, was being illegally spied on by the CIA the entire time, meaning every computer stroke, every cell call, every text message was being illegally monitored. That's because there are those in the CIA who have been using this same technology for decades in order to rig foreign elections, perhaps even to rig our own 2020 election. So you have to wonder about people like Laura Loomer, who calls herself an investigative journalist, but in fact is just a mouth for hire. Given this record of support for President Trump, particularly the declassification of the Russian collusion hoax documents and the declassification of the impeachment documents, why is Laura Loomer so manic in her efforts to destroy Tulsi Gabbard? Could it be because she's on the payroll of the CIA? Who's paying for every word, every syllable? Donald Trump has no stronger or more effective appointee, so why is crazy Laura Loomer out to destroy her? That's a question, not an assertion. It's a question that I will get to the bottom of. We now know that she's leaving office because her husband faces this major challenge in the weeks and months ahead, and she's decided to be by his side. I understand this entirely. My own wife, of course, was diagnosed with aggressive stage 4 cancer immediately after my pardon, and I know what she went through. Therefore, I know what Tulsi Gabbard and her husband Abraham are about to go through. She said that he has been her rock through 11 years of marriage, including her military deployment, her political campaigns, and her service in the Trump administration. Her departure may close a significant chapter in the effort to reform Americans' intelligence community. It depends on who her successor is. Personally, I'm hoping it will be former Congressman and former House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, who would be ideal for this job. But as I said earlier, I still believe that Tulsi Gabbard has a great political future ahead of her. I still believe that she will be the first woman president of the United States. Not in 2028. She's young and she will be back in the political wars. So unfortunately for Laura Loomer, you have not by any means heard the last of Tulsi Gabbard. If you're just tuning in, I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to The Stone Zone. President Donald Trump is urging the Supreme Court to do what's right as the justices prepare to rule on his executive order ending birthright citizenship for the children of illegal immigrants and others who are not lawfully permanent residents of the United States. The case, argued before the High Court in April, could become one of the most important immigration rulings in modern history. Trump says the 14th Amendment was never intended to create automatic citizenship for anyone who happens to be born on American soil while their parents are here unlawfully or temporarily. He argues correctly that the provision was adopted after the Civil War to protect the children of freed slaves, not to reward illegal immigration, birth tourism, or wealthy foreign nationals who are gaming the system. The president warned that if the current interpretation stands, America will continue losing control over its own citizenship rules as the nation's demographic downslide continues. President Trump argues that the policy could create massive long-term costs and encourage more people to enter the country for the purpose of securing citizenship for their children. Trump also criticized the court's recent rulings against his administration, saying the justices have already done serious damage on issues like tariffs that are holding back America's economic revival. The idea that the Supreme Court would rule that the President of the United States does not have the authority to negotiate tariff agreements with other countries is an absurdity. Still, he called on the court to defend the country's sovereignty in this crucial case. The issue here is pretty straightforward. Citizenship must mean allegiance, lawful status, and a real connection to the United States. And a loophole that's being exploited by illegal immigrants, foreign elites, and open border activists is killing America and should not be allowed to persist. President Trump did not appoint these supposedly conservative justices to the bench so they could sit idly by while the country was destroyed by illegal immigrants. The Supreme Court now faces its defining moment. Will they do the right thing and ensure that America controls its own citizenship, or will they keep forcing the nation to reward those who break the law? In the meantime, the Trump Justice Department has announced criminal charges against 15 people in a sweeping Minnesota fraud crackdown involving roughly $90 million in taxpayer losses. Federal prosecutors say the defendants, including child care center owners and Medicaid providers, stole from programs meant to serve some of the most vulnerable Americans, including autistic children, the disabled, and the homeless. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said Minnesota will no longer be a safe haven for fraud. He also said that the DOJ will hunt down the fraudsters and dismantle these predatory schemes wherever they operate. These particular charges involve 7 state-managed Medicaid programs. One major target is Minnesota's House Stabilization Services Program, which was created to help the homeless and disabled people find and keep housing. It was projected to cost $2.6 million a year in 2020, but by 2024, costs had exploded past $104 billion. Fraud drained this program so badly, it has now been shut down. Kudos to the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche for cracking down on this level of corruption. It's about time. And those who think that this will not be an issue in the upcoming 2026 elections are wrong. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to The Stone Zone. Don't go away because we'll be back with more politics on the other side.